Hello everyone and welcome back. So I decided to do a little bit of an impromptu Forgecast just out of nowhere, but something on a very relevant topic that I think might just be something that is actually decently useful. So, I've been asked the question a few times, how does one get into blacksmithing? And frankly, I never really thought of it that much. For me, it was kind of a slow process, but for the sake of time and for the sake of effort, I can show you guys that whole multi-year process in just a few minutes. So here goes. First off, find out what you already have. So what you saw there was me pretty much just using the original equipment that I had. A little hammer, of course I used to use a claw hammer, not a ball peen hammer, but I used to use a little hammer and also that bench vise right there with the little anvil back on it. It was very rudimentary technology, and frankly, I don't know how I even managed to bend any metal with that. But that's what I had to start out with. Now, I also didn't have a forge to start out with. This time I was using a forge mainly just to test it out. Unfortunately, it's not quite up to the efficiency I want it to be at, but I did not have a forge to start out with. I just had a propane torch. So pretty much, I had a propane torch with one of these little cans attached to it. It's one of these little things. And yeah, pretty much just those things. And that's kind of how I got my start. At a certain point, I was like, I need to remove the scale from some stuff. We had an old bench grinder, but on the other side there was a brush wheel. So I'd use that brush wheel to remove some of the more outstanding scale. Now, of course, for those of you who have worked with a brush wheel, you know that it creates scale of its own, so it wasn't actually that good. But it worked. For the amount of stuff I had, it worked. And then eventually I worked my way up into sandpaper, and that was pretty good. But that was also around the same time that I got this little forge right here. I got this thing for about 60 bucks when I originally got it. Now, forges usually go for a lot more than that, getting into the hundreds range, really. You can get a one burner forge for decent amount, 100, maybe more. Just a small little coffee can forge like that, isn't usually too expensive. And for forge tongs, I use these, just pretty much regular pliers, mainly just because I don't want to reach in there with my hand. I'd rather have the metal take the heat than my hand. Now, I did make myself, just recently, some little tongs. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but you're going to have to watch the video for that one. It's coming out soon. But yeah, I made myself some tongs, and it went pretty well. There are a few things I don't like about them, so, you may not be seeing them very much, but it's actually been one of my better successes, so I'm kind of happy with how they turned out regardless. So at first I was making mostly just rings. I don't think I actually branched into knives until later. But when I did branch out into knives, I suddenly got this bladesmithing kick, and I was like, ooh, I want to move up. So I ended up getting a few fire bricks. I think I got like 6 fire bricks and some refractory cement. I made myself that original forge that you will see in like the second video or something like that. First or second video that I put on this channel. Made that back in January of this year, 2020. And yeah, I actually built that so that I could run something through the middle of it. And I decided to start making something that my brother requested, which is a jiandao that, here it is. A jiandao, which I'm most of the way through sanding, but unfortunately, that last little bit of scale and unevenness is really stubborn. So I decided to start work on that. I also started work on a claymore, but yeah, I haven't done nearly as much work on that, so unfortunately, we're at kind of a primitive state on that one, but who knows, maybe I'll get to it eventually. A lot of it was me just kind of going, how can I improve this? How can I improve that? And I also, around the same time I got that, I decided to get this little adapter hose that would adapt between like a smaller propane attachment like you'd see with one of these cans and a 5-gallon can. So Yeah, I think that's 5 gallons. It's one of those, decently larger ones that you generally see on barbecues. I have one of those things sitting down there underneath the table. And I decided to get an adapter hose. Yeah, an adapter hose between that and the blowtorch. And I ran that into the forge back when I had the little one. But then I got the idea, maybe I should introduce more oxygen into this. So I decided to put a fan next to it. And I had the fan blowing into the forge, and that, let me just tell you, not only did it remove that bad propane smell from the air, which probably was not a good thing for me, but it also made it burn a whole lot hotter. It was great. I thought it was an absolute miracle. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it for the most part. And now I'm kind of at the stage where I'm looking into getting a better, more professionally made forge because this one is just angering me. This Jester forge is kind of, been a thorn in my side ever since I made it. But it is something that I made. It's a pretty good firebrick forge. I think it's better than the last one I made as far as it being sturdy, but unfortunately it's not nearly as efficient. So it has been a bit of a thorn in my side. But I am fortunate that I have a firebrick forge to work with. Kale wool is not an optimal material, and if you decide to get something cheap like that, I would definitely suggest getting something that's been pre-rigidized, or at least rigidize it yourself. And what rigidizing is, pretty much you get this silicone-based spray, I guess. It helps to adhere the fibers of that wool to each other and prevent it from coming off and whatnot. And becoming an airborne carcinogen for your lungs to inhale. Anyway, I've probably droned on long enough. I gotta be at work at 8 in the morning anyway, and it's getting kinda late, so I'm probably just gonna want to call it here for now. But yeah, I mean, just generally, start off with what you have, and then just sort of work your way up, as you see fit. It's a bit of a monetary commitment at some point. You do have to put some money forward. You can't do everything with just, redneck engineering and whatnot like I tried to do back in the day. But, once you're able to get it going, as long as it's not, too big of a burden on the finances, should be fine. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say on that, really. And if I were to give any sort of advice, it'd just be listen to the experts because they know what they're doing. People that have been in this craft for a while. I generally try and learn from their experience rather than my own, just because, they've only already been there. It's not like they know anything, right? But anyway, it's good to take advice from people that have been doing this for a while. So I generally try and study the more seasoned blacksmiths out there and see what they do and do my best to follow that sort of vein of thinking. I know that a lot of them are safety concerned because blacksmithing is inherently dangerous, so you definitely want to have a concern for safety. But anyway, I digress. I think I'll end the video here, so I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you all have a great day.